ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the best sports show in Kansas City. This is Any Given Sunday on KUAW Radio, where sports come alive. Join your hosts, the awesome voice, and Coach 24 as they dive into the latest sports news, analysis, and excitement. From the biggest games to the most thrilling moments, they've got it all covered. So sit back, relax, and get ready for an hour of unbeatable sports action. This is Any Given Sunday on KUAW Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Weekend Eve. This is Brian Kress, the awesome voice. This is Any Given Sunday on KUAW. To my right here, my brother with another mother, Coach 24, Darwin Penny. How are you doing this evening?
We're doing great this evening. We're excited to be here and looking forward to another great show.
Absolutely. And running the show behind the scenes, Mr. DJ Scatter, George Walker. Mr. Walker, how are you doing this evening?
Well, we're doing just fine here, despite the technical difficulties.
Oh, well, I'm going to blame it on the cold weather. And to be perfectly honest, I need to find out who caused this cold weather and have a talk with them. So anyway, yeah, I just got my my phone started with the on Facebook, a live show. So people, if you're trying to get on KUAW, there's an issue on Facebook with it, but you can go to YouTube and what other? And KUAW Radio, and you can listen to the show, or you can just listen to us right here. So, and I'm going to stretch this back just a little bit. Yep. You see it's pretty grindy.
Yeah.
It's pretty grindy. So, anyway, so obviously we've got the NFC, AFC championship games. I've got my shirt on. I'm wearing the hoodie because I don't actually have my team. And we will talk about football in a little bit, but I wanted to talk a little bit about baseball and with the Royals signing some players.
International Signing Day last week. International Signing Day is so that it wouldn't be the wild, wild west with teams signing international players. There used to be a time when teams could just run roughshod out there and just sign whoever they could, and obviously the teams with more monies, the Dodgers, the Yankees, could go out and just sign as many players as they wanted to. But now there is spending allotments that each team has. You can get more or you can get less based on what you do in free agency and free agents that you lose as far as that is concerned. And so, but the Royals signed 22 international free agents, with the vast majority of them being from the Dominican Republic. But we also signed a guy from Mexico. We did also sign an infielder from Colombia. And so, it's a really, really exciting time to go out. And some of these guys, to be honest, you may never see them in the United States, but, there are guys that you'll go out and you sign them as, when they're eligible at 15 years and 9 months, they're able to sign. And so basically 16 years old, you're able to sign those guys. And so, but we did have a good class that we feel like is going to be help our minor league system become better to try to produce better major league players. The highest ranked prospect that we did sign was a catcher by the name of Moises Marchand. Out of all the international prospects, he was number 31 on the overall international class. And then we've got another guy that's a couple of Dominican shortstops, Warren Calcano. He was like number 38 on the international prospect side. And then there's a guy by the name of Ramsel Medina. He's like number 49. So we got 3 of the top 50 international prospects that were out there of the 22 international free agents that we signed. And so most of those guys will start this year down in our Dominican Summer League, where they'll get a chance to just get indoctrinated to being a Royals player, and then they'll play in the Summer League, and then we'll see. The best guys may only play 1 year down there. Some guys may wind up playing 2 years down there before they make their way to the United States.
So on this, so like the Dodgers have been signing those top name Japanese players. How can they get those top players, and if there is a restriction or a group, or I guess a draft or whatever, or however you did this, and I'm
So there's not a draft. It's been one of the big topic of discussion is actually having an international draft versus going out. And so what you do is you go out and you scout players. You have great relationships with some of the trainers that have these guys, and really you now almost come to agreement with some of these guys at 13, 14 years old that when you're old enough that you're going to sign with us. Now, when you sign a guy like Roki Sasaki, it is not the same as an amateur international because he was considered a pro international signing.
So in other words, it's almost like he was a free agent.
He was essentially a free agent. And so he's not like the guys that have never played any pro ball at all. And so he's a very different. When you sign him, a Yamamoto, a Otani, those guys are different because they are playing in another professional league that's an international league, primarily Japan. And we see a lot of the guys now in Japan wanting to influx here. But when we talk about International Signing Day, we're talking about these young Latin American kids that are available out there, and it is a big showcase to see who these top prospects are. And you never know which guys are going to be the top guys that actually come over and make the adjustment of playing in the United States, and which guys are going to be guys that just like at the NFL Combine, they put on all of these great numbers that show their natural ability but cannot make it infiltrate into a game.
So how can you sign these guys at 16, 17 years old, whereas maybe you can't, let's just say I'm 16 years old and I'm a ball player in the United States, and you can't sign me until at least I'm either graduated high school or I'm 18 years old, or what is the difference?
The draft is the difference. You in order to be eligible for the draft, you have to be a high school graduate or having a high school equivalency. Right now, if you're 17 years old, then your parents have to sign that contract. If you are 18 years old, you don't need your parents' permission to sign that contract, just like if you were going into selective service.
Right.
You know, and so that's the difference. A draft versus the international free agent signing is what they decide, because it takes you a little bit more time with those young guys in Latin America, because we're going to spend, the guys that are over there for a year or 2 years, we're going to spend 2 years trying to teach them English so that they can come and play in the United States. American players here that are going through the draft are not having to make a cultural adjustment, and so you wouldn't sign those guys at quite so early.
Gotcha. So with that, so how many players did we, not we, but the Royals signed?
We signed 22 players.
22. So is there a max? Is there a minimum?
No, it's all according to the amount of dollars that you have to spend.
Oh, okay.
And so once you have that amount, then that's going to determine how many players that you sign, depending on if you have one guy that's a big bonus baby. And so for us, the biggest international sign that we've ever had was Alberto Mondesi.
Oh, okay.
Right, because we gave him like $2 million out of an international sign, and that's a lot of money for an international sign. Now, there are guys who've gotten more, But that's the most that we've ever given a player is $2 million in an international.
So was that because of the fact of his father and he played or
just the projection on the tool set and that everybody who was anybody wanted him.
yeah.
And so just the projectability. I mean, he's still probably has the best set of tools I've ever seen in a shortstop.
Right, but what is he? But he's approaching 30 now, isn't he?
28. He's younger than our center fielder. Look, can I say that?
Oh wow!
The crazy part is we forget that we brought him to the major leagues as a teenager, right?
Right.
In 2015, so he'll turn at some point in time this year. He'll turn 29 years old, and everything. But he was a teenager when he made his major league debut.
Right.
In the World Series. He's the only player in history to make his major league debut in the World Series.
Oh, wow.
And so, but when I talk about a skill set, the ability to run, to throw, to field, to hit with power, and to be a switch hitter, that guy had as many tools as anybody who I've ever seen at the position of shortstop. In 2019, when I saw Bobby Witt Jr. for the first time, I was not thinking Bobby Witt Jr. was going to be our shortstop. I was thinking Bobby Witt Jr. probably is going to fill out and play third base for us because Mondesi is our shortstop of the future. That's how much I thought of that young man.
Oh wow! So how much has he gone down? Because isn't he still with the Red Sox?
He's unsigned by anybody. It's a combination of a guy who just could not stay healthy, right? And we've seen that in every sport. Just as he was starting to turn the corner in the major leagues, he got hurt. And then he was hurt again the next year. But I can remember the first time of me working him out. I had to go to the stadium once when he was on the injured list and work him out. And I thought to myself, he's got no fat on him. And he's all lean muscle. And so every time that he would have contact either hard with somebody or the field or whatever, he was tearing up muscle. And that's hard. And everybody doesn't have the same level of pain tolerance and things like that. And he's had a lot of psychological issues that preventing him from being the best player that he could have been. When people talk about guys like Francisco Lindor,
Mm-hmm.
Mondesi's raw skill set were better than his.
And Lindor is pretty great player.
He's
yes.
exceptional. But Mondesi did not have the same mental makeup as a Lindor or whatever, or a Bobby Witt Jr. But when I just say tools, so think about how fast Bobby is.
Right.
Mondesi was faster.
Faster?
Faster.
Because Bobby Witt Jr. is like one of the top 3 fastest players in baseball right now.
Mondesi was faster.
Wow.
Think about Bobby's power.
Mm-hmm.
And Mondesi had that power from both sides of the plate. 30 home run potential, being able to hit from both sides of the plate.
So it is amazing how
you talk about a guy that's a washout of a career. That guy, he could have been that dude.
Wow.
And everything. So I'm telling you, in my heart, in my professional opinion, had he stayed healthy, had he had all those things, Bobby would be our third baseman.
Oh, wow. And then it would have even been much better.
Oh, man, we'd be knocking the playoffs door way down if that guy could have reached his potential, right?
Yeah.
But he's not the only guy ever in baseball or football or basketball
right.
not to reach their potential. But just talking about raw tool set and what you're looking for in an international sign, that's a guy where we grade him on a scale of 20 to 80, with 80 being highest. He was an 80 runner with a 70 arm, with a potential to be a 70 fielder, and a potential to be a 60 hit. That's a high grade for a guy to be able to do that, and had 60 power.
So you've always, when people talk about 5-tool players, and you've always said they're not really 5-tool players. He was a 5-tool player.
He was a true 5-tool guy. That's a true.
That's a rarity.
What we didn't get a chance to see was that come to fruition. But his raw tools were all plus, Okay, and that's why I tell everybody I still have 5 tools, but they're not plus anymore.
Right.
And I always see people say that this guy's a 5 tool guy. I got no, he's 4, no, he's 3.
Right.
Right. There's very few guys that are truly 5 plus tools.
So, well, let me ask you this. So, like right now, not in the majors, but in like coming up, how many players do you know offhand, all through baseball, are true 5-tool players?
Well, guys that are not in the major leagues?
Not in the major leagues.
I might have last year. I might have observed maybe 2 guys that I thought had the opportunity to be that. There's a lot of guys with 4. You
Right.
know, because you were. There's always something. Is this guy going to have that hit tool that he can go out and hit, be a consistent 300 hitter? That's what you said. When a guy's a plus tool, he's a plus 300 hitter, and he's going to hit, 25 to 30 home runs every year, right? That's, plus power guy. Guy's got a really plus arm, from whatever position that he's playing. I mean, those guys are hard. And then a guy that's got above average speed also. Those guys are hard to find.
Wow.
Right. Like I say, if you're 4-tool, you're a really good prospect.
Right.
But 5-tool, we throw that around way too loosely these days. The Mazes, those type of guys, Mike Trouts, those are true 5-tool guys. There was an argument that Barry Bonds wasn't a 5-tool guy because he had an average arm.
Right.
But all the other tools were plus.
So it kind of overlooked the one.
Because he played such a complete game, people always gave him credit for being a 5-tool player. But in reality, he had an average to maybe even slightly below average arm.
Right. Sid Bream knows that very well.
Yeah, that play is
I
not
know.
a fair indication
I know.
of a left-handed thrower going toward
Right.
center field to try to throw that ball with 2 outs and a guy going on the swing. Even so, slid, and it was still a really total bang-bang play. So I always tell people he gets a bad rap for that because you got to remember the ball was going towards center field and the glove is on his right hand because he's a left-handed thrower. So he's going away from the play.
Right.
So it's a lot. It would have been a lot different if he'd have been a right-handed thrower. So, but it's crazy.
So that's cool, and that's really good to know this because a lot of people just making assumptions. I mean, even to me, I make those assumptions because you only hear, the Bobby Witts, the Bryce Harpers, Lindor, and all them, and so that was good information. So that was pretty cool. Now, just to say, we will probably take a break in the next 5 minutes or so, and then we're gonna start up on the NFL. Now, is there any more baseball outside of what else we talked about that you have going? Because the only thing I know is that the Dodgers are picking up everybody, and that we picked international players. So.
Yeah, so just know that we're inside the 3 weeks of pitchers and catchers report.
That's true. So yeah, so actually it'll be the week after the Super Bowl.
Yes.
And just to let you guys know, the Super Bowl is on my birthday, so that's my birthday present that I'm wanting is the Chiefs to go 3-peat. So
There you go.
absolutely. So, and speaking of that, let's go into the NFL now. People talk about the Chiefs and they complain about that they get all these breaks and everything else, but you got to realize what the Chiefs are doing is pretty amazing because if you think about it, look at Detroit. The Detroit Lions, they lost their first game, which was the divisional. They had the week off. They got rested, and then they played the Washington Commanders. And then Washington came in and beat them. They set records, like they were 222 points ahead I mean, they were the high-powered offense. They were what the Chiefs were about 6, 7 years ago. And yet they could not get past the Washington Commanders. Now, with them, they just lost their offensive coordinator. They just lost their defensive coordinator. What do you see for the Detroit Lions coming up?
I think, Detroit had some seriously key injuries, especially on the defensive end of the ball. When you lose a Aiden Hutchinson type impact player, I think that had a huge part because their defense wasn't the same down the stretch, and you give up as many points as they did in the divisional round. I think that's where the real issue is. They have playmakers on offense. My biggest thing for them is how are they going to regroup? Coaches can be replaced, right? The tough coach to replace is the head coach who sets the culture. That's the guy who's hard to replace. Coordinators come and go, right? You make adjustments. One year you may not be as good as you were the previous year with a new coordinator, unless you hire that coordinator internally where he's going to say, well, we're just going to continue to use the same type of scheme that we did. Most of the time when the coordinator leaves, people forget there's usually a few free agents that you lose along with that coordinator that go play for him somewhere else because they offer him more money, and I'm going to a scheme that I'm familiar with. Right. So I think that it's case in point with Washington. Washington picked up a lot of Dallas's depth on defense this past year because of Dan Quinn going to Washington. And so he took some Durant's Armstrongs and some people like that went over and played well for him in that defense. So I think that's the thing when coordinators move, people forget is a lot of times they wind up taking a few players with them. And so that's where you see a little bit of regression unless you had stellar depth. That's what makes teams go down. When the depth is not there, you don't have that guy to come and be the next man up. And so I think Detroit has to kind of go back and regroup a little bit, get everybody healthy, and not panic. Now, the tough part is going to be for them is with Chicago getting a new coach going to vastly improve the Bears? What's it going to look like quarterback situation in Minnesota? Okay, and then will Green Bay take that next step? So the hard part for Detroit is your window of opportunity closing on you as your division gets better.
Do you think that Detroit does become the Cincinnati Bengals, because it seems like their door keeps closing, even though that everybody keeps thinking, they got this high-power offense and everything else, and they beat the Chiefs. Now it's going on 5 years that they beat the Chiefs, but they haven't done nothing since.
Yeah, I think they're in a little bit different situations based on the culture that Dan Campbell has created there in Detroit. I think, too, one of the things that hurt Cincinnati as they were trying to move up the ladder was the injuries to Joe Burrow versus being able to stay healthy on the field. Goff has been relatively healthy throughout his entire career. He hadn't had the big injury. I think that, and then the ability to run the ball in Detroit, I think will play better into their situation. I thought that Cincinnati made a huge error in letting Joe Mixon get away from them. It kept their offense really, really balanced, especially when you have the receiving core that they do have. But you have to try to keep that guy around, and you have to try to shore up your defense, which has been the thing that actually has let you down in those big games.
Yeah, well, and I've heard stories about Cincinnati being somewhat really tight with their money. Like my mom, they always said, I used to always say, because my mom would always, save and scrape, and it's a totally different issue, but still, like I can hear Abe Lincoln screaming from Peculiar because she pinches Penny so tight. And it sounds like that Cincinnati does the exact same thing. I've heard people tell stories like like somebody was going to take a couple of Gatorades home, and they were like, "No, you can't take them," and you're like, "No, really?" And they were like, "Dead serious. We have to keep count of all this," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that is bad."
Yeah, I think they are a team that from a front office standpoint, actually, some people say, yeah, they're tight. Well, they didn't look too tight in paying all that money to Joe Burrow, okay, and paying money to Chase. But how much money is there to go around, and are you going to pay the money for the depth? And who are the guys that maybe you don't deem essential that really are the essential guys to do that? And it's not, let's just be honest, it's not the most attractive place to play. You know, there's other places you can play. You know, it's, to me, Cincinnati is like Cleveland plus. You know, it's just a little bit better than Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
Go and play.
Yeah.
And so, you know, some of these players, you know, are going to think about, you know, if I've got similar offers, where do I really want to be out? But everybody wants to be somewhere where they feel appreciated.
Right. So, and I totally get that. So, and Detroit, so with the Washington Commanders, now they are one game away from the Super Bowl and have the first rookie quarterback to start a Super Bowl, because I guess there's been other quarterbacks, but they've been like backups. And I think, well, what was it? It was it was Roethlisberger. He was actually not the starter. It was who. Oh, I can't even think who it was. But anyway, but he was in the Super Bowl as a rookie, but he wasn't starting at that moment. So, but you got Washington versus Philadelphia, and you got Kansas City versus Buffalo. And right now, we are going to go ahead and take a break. We are at halftime on Any Given Sunday on KUAW. Coach 24, we've got DJ Scatter, and I'm the Awesome Voice. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, we will talk about these NFC AOC games. All right, we are back for the second half of Any Given Sunday on KUAW. Coach 24 and I are together, and we are talking AFC NFC Championship game. So let's go to the first one. We've got Philadelphia versus Washington. Now, this game that Philadelphia played against the Rams, it was Saquon Barkley just totally running away. And here's the ironic thing. When Jalen Hurts passes for under 155 yards, he's undefeated. When he passes for over 250 yards, he doesn't win. So he only, and I want to say he passed for like 60 yards, but they were the first team or the first duo to score touchdown runs of over 40 yards in a playoff game. So
yeah, three big plays in a running game were huge. Obviously, Hurts with a 40-plus yard touchdown for their first score, and then Saquon with two big, 60-plus yard runs. And despite all that, the Rams still had a chance. And if the Rams don't turn the ball over, I think they win that game. But the turnovers were huge each time that they turned the ball over. I believe each time Philly turned it into points.
Right, absolutely. And the other thing was the penalty, that false start on the right tackle allowed Philadelphia to switch out players because it gave them a chance because they were gassed. They were doing no huddle offense, and it was working to perfection. And right after that, and when Philadelphia got some new blood in there, they just totally shut them down. And I really thought that the Rams were going to win. I went 1-3 the last week. The only one I got right was the Chiefs game. So, but saying this, Washington has already played them twice this year. They've won one, they've lost one, and they know how to. They stood up to them in Washington, but they're going to play in Philadelphia. I don't know what the weather is going to be like in Philadelphia. I don't know if there's going to be any snow or anything. But what is the Eagle or to me, the Commanders, what they need to do is to find a way to shut down Barkley, which is a tough task, and make Jalen Hurts beat them.
The hard part with trying to shut down Saquon is his big play ability. The Rams, prior to him hitting the big home run, they had done a pretty good job, and that's what makes Saquon Saquon. You can stop him for 14 or 15 plays, he'll have 15 carries for 30 yards, and then all of a sudden he busts an 80-yard run, and there's nothing you can do about it because he's got elite speed once he gets into the secondary, and that's what you got him for, is that ability to hit his head on the goalpost when you do that. I think what they have to do, though, is the best way that you can negate Saquon is you have a running game and you control the ball and limit him and get ahead. They were never playing from behind in the game, and so that keeps Saquon in the game. They're committed to running the ball. You got to get ahead of them where they have to take some chances, and they have to try to throw the ball to play catch-up. But I haven't seen the Eagles come back from like 2 touchdowns behind all year. They've been able to play ahead, and they've been able to utilize Saquon and keep him involved in the games. The games that they did lose were games where he effectively had, 10 to 15 carries. Once he gets to 15 to 20 carries, your defense gets a little bit tired. Somebody misses a tackle. Next thing you know, they're playing that song that I hate to hear, Fly Eagles Fly.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely. And the mayor needs to learn how to spell Eagles. Oh man, that was hilarious. I heard that and I was just laughing my butt off. So, but Jalen Daniels, I mean, you always figure a rookie, no matter how awesome he is, he always seems, they always seem to slip up, but he has really been rock solid. Obviously he's going to be the offensive rookie player of the year. And I had people saying, well, Bo Nix did this and Bo Nix did that. And I'm like, really? Are you kidding me? So, but Jalen Daniels is automatically there. What is he going to have to do to shut down the Philly defense, which the Philly defense was considered number one in the NFL this past year?
Yeah, I think he'll continue to do what he's been doing. One of the reasons why he's had such a successful rookie season, in my opinion, is he hadn't had to change the style of player that he is. He's been allowed to be Jalen. He's been able to do basically the same things that he did at LSU and playing in a big-time conference and playing for big-time games and playing in large atmospheres. The moment is not too big for him. He had a little bit of a lull in the middle of the season, but I think part of that was that he was dealing with a hip injury until he could get his legs back up under him, which he has now. But his ability to extend plays is going to play a huge factor in that, and to get outside the pocket and make throws off script. And, but when he needs to stay in the pocket and throw and deliver the ball, and Washington has a very underrated set of receivers that can get down the field and who can make plays. Terry McLaurin, I've said for probably the last 5 years, is one of the most underrated receivers in the game because he doesn't have a big name, doesn't have a big attitude, and not doing the gritty every time he scores a touchdown. But the guy just can flat out play ball. They've been able to utilize Jock Dotson in that offense that they have. And then they've got two guys that can run the ball relatively well and just, do some things really well to give them an opportunity to maintain ball control. But it was their ability to be Big Strike and Jaden to find those guys running down the middle of the field on deep crossing routes, and he was putting the ball where it needed to be, and guys weren't having to break stride once he hits them. And so I just think his mobility is going to be a huge factor in the game, and his ability to negotiate outside of the pocket. How clean can they keep him when he is in the pocket? And so and see, can they control the ball and get that Philly defense a little bit tired? Because I do think Philly still has some issues on the back end of the defense in the secondary.
Yep, I totally agree with that. But it's a lot easier to just spike up your defense when you're always a touchdown or two touchdowns ahead and making the other team catch up. So for Washington, they're going to have to start quickly, get points on the board, and make Philadelphia play chase.
Absolutely, and take that Philly crowd out of the game. So the Philly crowd never truly got into the game in the Rams game.
No.
They had them at bay just because it was a tight game, and they didn't get to doing the things that they can do to make it very difficult to play there. But it was the turnovers that was the difference in that game.
Yep, absolutely. And usually in games like those, it's usually like one or two plays. And, as we had said, or I had said before, that every team that lost, they had out yardage the winning team. But the problem was, with the exception of the Chiefs-Texan game, they had turnovers, whereas the winning teams had 0 turnovers.
Yeah,
which
that's the separator when you get to this point in the year.
Yeah.
And it was my fear for the Rams in Philadelphia in that weather, and once it became inclement, especially the second half of the game where the snow started to fall, it was going to be like, okay, who's going to not hold on to the ball?
Right, absolutely. And with what was it, Stafford fumbling the ball was really key, because he was running around with it in one hand, which I could not believe he was doing that. And he has struggled in the playoffs in that type of weather. So, absolute, it just, it goes down to one mistake. And so with that, you have Washington and Philadelphia. Who do you have winning this game?
It's still going to be hard for me to pick against the home team, and so I'm gonna go with Philadelphia as the home team.
I'm going to go with Washington.
Okay.
Washington has played well. I think that they can. I think it will be a turnover. It will be something like that that Philadelphia will do to allow the Commanders. I was about ready to say the other name, but
I'll say it for you, Redskins,
yeah.
Deadskins.
So it's going to be high scoring. So even with that, I would say that it will be 31. I'm going to say 31-30 Commanders over the Eagles. So now let's go. Oh, what?
I was gonna say, if Washington has the ball last and they got a shot, I'm gonna trust Jaden Daniels to make that. I just feel like they're gonna have the Eagles bottled up, and then all of a sudden there goes Saquon down the sideline, just like last week, man. And so it's gonna be interesting. Will either one of the Eagles' big time receivers show up in a game yet?
They haven't.
And they haven't.
No.
It's been Saquon, and then they've been able to make some plays with the tight ends and everything, but they have been relatively quiet.
Right, but sometimes you don't necessarily need them when Saquon and Hurts is running for 300 yards.
Absolutely.
So,
but what happens when that doesn't?
right.
Are they going to be ready to step up and make those?
And
those
that's why I say for the Commanders, if you can shut down Barkley and make Hurts beat you by the pass, that gives them a better shot.
Absolutely.
And so now we'll go to the evening game, which is going to be it's going to be historic either way. So Buffalo and Kansas City, and these guys have played 10 times since Mahomes and Josh Allen has been around, and they are 5-5, and they have scored 251 points and given up 251 points. It is about as even as you can get. And the weather factor, it wouldn't matter if it was the Miami Dolphins weather last year or snow like it was last week with the Rams or the Eagles, or even a 45-degree day. Both teams seem to play well in that type of weather. I mean, even Buffalo last week, they played in the snow. And you got two great quarterbacks that are leading. And really, if it wasn't for Mahomes being around, Josh Allen could have already been in a Super Bowl or two.
Yeah, all of the AFC quarterbacks not named Joe Burrow have had to fall in submission to the Mahomes era. Only twice has he not made it to the Super Bowl. 1 year with Brady, 1 year with Burrow, and so, yeah, it's like the Eastern Conference with Jordan in the '90s. How hard it was for the Patrick Ewings and the other teams to get to the finals. That run of about 8-9 years that LeBron had in controlling the Eastern Conference, and so we're seeing that in the Mahomes era. We saw it in the Brady era, where it was hard for the Peyton Mannings and the people to break through, but eventually they did. Okay, not often, but eventually they did. Even Fluco got in there 1 year. So,
yep, absolutely.
I think that it is going to, Josh Allen's going to have to play his best game without getting himself overly hyped up to make all the plays. I do think that Buffalo's going to have to lean on their running back a little bit, and those no-name receivers continue to make plays to have a chance. I think, though, this is their best chance if they were ever going to beat the Chiefs. I think this is their best chance to do that. There was the other years where they played the close games in the 13-second game and all of that. But in those games, I still thought the Chiefs were superiorly better. I think the Chiefs now are not a superiorly better team, but have superior confidence because they've been there, they've done that. It's Mahomes, it's Andy Reid, it's Travis Kelce. They've played well in all the big games, right? Mahomes has never not played well in a playoff game.
With the exception of the second half of that Bengals game.
Right. So, right, yeah, because he's been so spectacular that was average, and
right.
So now it's way down, right? And so, but he's been a big money player throughout these playoffs, and I had a friend that called me during the game Sunday. He was like, man, the tide has shifted, and the Texans are starting to outplay the Chiefs and everything. I said, text him back 15. That's all you need to worry about. It's 15. As long as he's upright and he can play, he's going to make a play. And it wasn't long after that he makes the play where he's in the grasp and he's falling and he throws while he's in the middle of the air. Another Houdini Mahomes play.
Yep.
And he texts me back. He goes, I won't bother you anymore. Like, dude, he always makes a play when he has to make a play. And so just relax. And they too, we've never seen them have to come back from way down, except for that fluke of a quarter in the Texans game a couple years ago. But nobody really thought, okay, they're not going to come back.
Right.
There was too much time left. So I just think, playing at home, playing at Arrowhead. Yeah, we saw them do it on the road last year, but it's nothing like being at home, and it's going to be very difficult. But if there was ever a year that I thought Buffalo could do it,
yep,
this is the year, and we're still waiting to see that first three-peat. And the conference championship, historically, has been where three-peats have gone to die.
Yep, absolutely. The three teams that made it to that won the two Super Bowls, and then they went to the conference championship. The first one was Dallas that they lost to. I'm sorry. It was Pitt. I was thinking Dallas, but I was trying to say Pittsburgh. Yeah. It was Pittsburgh. They lost to Oakland, and then the other one was San Francisco, lost to the Giants. That was the game where Burt hit Montana, which would be a penalty today if you got
is a penalty.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other one was Dallas when they lost to San Francisco in '94, which actually, had they had won that, they could have done a four-peat. But I don't know if Jimmy Johnson would have still been around.
It's all ifs and buts and candies and nuts had you stayed around.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Absolutely.
So what coach basically gets fired after winning back-to-back Super Bowls? Only in Jera.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I think this. So this is the telltale, right? Like you said, those guys. The only other team that had that opportunity lost in the divisional round, which was the '74 Dolphins. They were going for actually their fourth Super Bowl in a row, even though they lost the first one they won to.
Yep.
But in the Sea of Hands game, they lost to the Raiders in the divisional round in '74. So, which then led to the Steelers' first championship.
Absolutely. And in this game, the Chiefs have gone an NFL record, in Super Bowl era NFL record, 8 straight games without a turnover. The last time that they had a turnover was against the Buffalo Bills.
Yes.
The game that their only game they lost, because I'm not counting Week 18 as a loss, because they had sat everybody down and Denver was trying to make a point. But the Bills have only had 8 turnovers all year long, which is also an NFL record. So so my thing is, whoever hiccups, whoever blinks, whoever makes that one mistake, that's going to cost their team the chance to play in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think this game. I don't think either team will make a bunch of huge mistakes as far as turning the ball over. I think they'll all be pretty smart about doing that. Not to say that anybody won't have a turnover, but I don't think it'll be one of those things where somebody turns the ball over 3 or 4 times in a game.
Oh,
Right. And
yeah.
I think there's going to have to be a big play made in the special teams that could ultimately impact the game. Right. And so we saw it last week versus Houston, how big the special teams not being able to make an extra point, missing kicks, made a difference in that game and keeping it a 1-score game versus a 2-score game, things like that. So I think that could play a huge part in it this week. Not as probably bad because this should be what we call good weather for this game this week, right? It's going to probably be the best weather they've had for an AFC Championship game in the last 7 years. So, so I don't think we won't have a sloppy track. We won't have to worry about snow and all those things. And so, I think now it comes down to who can make a big kick and who can maybe flip the field by making a great play in a return game.
Absolutely, and I feel that the Chiefs have the edge on the special teams because they have really stepped it up this year because the offense, look, it hasn't been super performance, but they performed when they needed to perform. And so with that, I have the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Buffalo Bills, and I'm going to say it is 29-26.
Okay. I'm going to go with the Chiefs also. I'm going to go 24-21 with a last-second Butker field goal that bounces through.
Another doinker, huh? A lot of doinks. So we are nearing the end of Any Given Sunday on KUAW, and we've had a phenomenal show, but it is getting better because we got Penny for Your Thoughts.
Penny for Your Thoughts. Today we want to recognize the 3 new inductees into the Hall of Fame that will also go in with Dick Allen and Dave Parker, who were elected on the Veterans Committee. We have Ichiro Suzuki, we have Billy Wagner, and we have CC Sabathia. All historic in their own right at how they become Hall of Famers. Billy Wagner, because he, for all my kids out there, was a Division III college baseball player at little bitty Ferrum University. Most people have no idea of where Ferrum is. He didn't go to a Power 5. He didn't go to an elite guy. He didn't have any scholarship offers coming out of high school, but Billy Wagner was one of the most dominant closers, especially in his tenure with the Houston Astros and then even with the Phillies. My frustration that it took 10 years for him to finally get elected to the Hall of Fame. But Billy Wagner was that all 5'9" of him running that ball up there 100 miles an hour. And we talk about where size doesn't matter. Billy Wagner is the epitome of size didn't matter. Billy Wagner was a natural right-handed person who his dad taught him to throw left-handed and winds up throwing 100 miles an hour. When you just talk about divine intervention, boy, that is divine intervention. CC Sabathia, there are not that many African-American pitchers in the Hall of Fame. And so it's a big deal for CC Sabathia to be able to go into the Hall of Fame. He's one of 15 of what they call the Black Aces, African-Americans who have won 20 games or more at the major league level. And so CC Sabathia, not even in his Cy Young Award year, he won 19 games. And the leader who coined the term Black Aces, Mudcat Grant, told him, said, "You still got work to do." I know Mudcat is up in heaven smiling down now at CC making it into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. And then Ichiro Suzuki, unbelievable. If you count all of his hits from Japan and the United States in Major League Baseball, he has more hits than Pete Rose. He would have over 4,300 hits to be able to come to Major League Baseball at an advanced age and still go out and get 3,089 hits. And then he wasn't just a hitter, but he was an outstanding Gold Glove defender with an elite arm and elite speed. And so our hat goes off to him for being the first Japanese-born player to come over to the United States and become a Hall of Famer. And so all of these guys, for me, all have something very unique about them that allowed them to become Hall of Famers, and so our hat goes off to him. Also, my hat goes off to Ichiro for inviting the one guy who didn't vote for him to come and have some sake with him and sit down.
There you go.
How do you not vote for that guy, man? But it's probably the same guy. He's probably a Red Sox writer who didn't vote for Jeter. Jeter was one vote short, too.
Yep.
But he voted for Mariano. So.
Right, exactly. So now they're retiring his number, and it's ironic because Randy Johnson was the one that let him wear that number and everything else. So I wonder if they're going to do a dual retirement.
It would be interesting. I think the Yankees are the only team that I know that have a number that two of the same people wore, and they retired it for both people.
Well,
But I'm going to have to go and double check that. Right? There's people, obviously, that have two people. The Yankees have two 42s retired because of Jackie Robinson and
Right.
everything, but in Mariano. But the Yankees, man, they were running out of numbers. Man.
was it number one? Because I know Billy Martin.
Billy Martin and Phil Rizzuto.
Okay, they're
Scooter.
yeah.
So they're the team that has that. The Yankees, you know that they were the first team in baseball to have numbers on their uniforms.
Right. And they are still one of the only ones that don't put the names on it.
Right. And so they're going to, if they keep retiring numbers, they're going to run out and they're going to be the first team with 3-digit numbers.
Yeah. Exactly.
But do you know how those people came up with those numbers?
It was in the order of their batting.
That's right. That's why Ruth was number 3 and Garrett was 4.
Yep.
They gave them numbers according to the batting order.
Yep.
A little bit of knowledge for you people out there today.
Yep, absolutely. So we are at the end of Any Given Sunday on KUAW. Coach 24, Darwin Penny. We've got DJ Scatter, George Walker, and I am Brian Kress, the Awesome Voice. Be awesome, not angry, and you guys have yourself a phenomenal championship football weekend.